Roll call. Here.
Here.
Doug Rowdy,
Here.
Ray Lou,
Here.
Gary Hall,
Here.
5 of 5 members.
Approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Motion made and to approve the agenda. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from the August 6th, 24 meeting.
Make a motion to approve this from the, as presented.
Second. Motion made and second to approve the minutes from the August 6th meeting of 24. All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. Here we have some. Okay, 3 minutes per person, not to exceed 30 minutes total. I'm sure I know why most people are here. We're gonna do 30 minutes, so each particular group or address should allow time for the others to make sure we get heard from all areas. So anybody want to go first? Go ahead. Step up to the podium, tell us your name and your address. Anyone? Yeah.
Jorgensen. It's my name. I live on Dry Creek Road. And you know we're here for the road name change. The biggest thing I would like to say is we were misrepresented. We had no idea this was going to happen. He said, oh, well, we were called to a meeting, but we were not represented by our representative. Nobody knew what was coming until, oh, your road's changed. And we're like, what? We're notified. We weren't asked. Not any of us were asked. We want it. We do not want to be a number. I think it's more confusing. If we had if I had to remember 7 numbers versus in an emergency, it's like, it's not going to work. But the biggest thing I want to reiterate is we were misrepresented. We were not let to vote on this. We didn't even get a letter to say what was happening at the meeting. I'm sure everybody would have came to the meeting because we're here now. But again, we were misrepresented in our street, on these people's streets also. Okay, I could give you a million reasons. This is, it's going to cost us a lot of money to change our addresses, to change all of our documents, everything. It's not just changing your license or your mailing, getting mail. It's all of your documents. And everybody knows it. It's going to cost us a lot of money. And I don't want to be a number. None of us want to be a number. I guess that's about what I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Patterson. I live on Deer Lake on Birchwood Terrace. I did know of this a while ago because I was on the Deer Lake Improvement Association and I had dealt with Jason. His last name begins KJ something, I can't pronounce it, who's no longer here, and Logan took his position. I'd heard about the A's and B's, and I still think, given this edict was 1978, the whole world's changed, as we all know. GPS came into play. 45 years, no one did anything. A man died on Half Moon. The volunteer person who went out to get him didn't have GPS on his phone. It was 10 years ago. Today, if a volunteer doesn't, we should buy them the phone. It'd be a lot cheaper. The other person who died on Deer Lake, there was no fire sign. Being from the city, I had no idea I'm supposed to have a fire sign. No one told me. After her husband died, she got the word out to a lot of people, and we got hold of fire signs. Not everybody even has them. The word never came from the county or the township that we need these. We just heard from this woman. And those are the 2 people who've died that we're aware of in this whole area in 10, 15 years because of a mishap. So those 2 things, not having a fire sign, not having GPS. Today, GPS picks up everything. And I know Jason kept bringing up reiteration of GPS 0.9 or something like that. It's not going to be a problem. It is not, it isn't a problem, won't be a problem. On our lane, as I was advocating for another road, Sunset View, he said, why are you even bothering about that? Except that I was on this committee. And he said, your road's never going to change. You don't have any As and Bs. And we don't. We have none. We only have 8 owners, 10 cabins. Mine's one of the original cabins from the 1920s that's still there, little summer cottage. And it's been on the tax roll for almost 100 years. If I could go back further, it might even be back further, but I can go back to 1927 on it. Birchwood Terrace has never had a trouble being found. We had 2 incidents in July when a new cabin was built and it triggered an alarm. And the fire department, Polk County, electric came. We also had the sheriff come. Everybody found the house. No one, it happened twice in the month of July. No problems. We've never been a problem. We're an offshoot of South Daylight Circle. And we'd like to keep it that way, that we're a privately maintained road. We've never asked for help on anything. Except if we did need emergency services, we really don't use the services of the town. I mean, we take the road, but they won't do it for us. So we pay it for ourselves. We're not given due diligence on this. The county, the township told us they were supposed to put the letter in the tax letter. It did not get in. And then the 6 of them decided they weren't going to spend $2,000, just mail it out. Not due diligence. They said, well, we did the open meeting rules, which are post office, bank, and newspaper. Even if I ever went to the Balsam Bank or post, I don't bank here, bank in the cities. I don't ever go to the Balsam Lake post office because it's supposed to be St. Croix Falls. None of us knew. And it's also just a small notice that says meeting, which happens every month. There's no place to go to a website to see an agenda. It didn't say, see the agenda. It's a big meeting. No one came. And I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much time, but I'm really advocating.
Yeah.
I'd love to advocate for everybody. I'm
Sorry,
really advocating
your
for
time is
Birchwood
up.
Terrace. Birchwood Terrace. So thank you.
My name is Rod Johnson. I live on 1795 Pinewood Road. And I won't go through what we already filed with you back earlier this month, or last month, that gives the reasons why and some of the reasons that Debbie talked about. I always look at something and say, what's the reason? And I'm not sure I understand from the county what your rationale is for this. What problem are we solving? It almost seems like we have a solution in search of a problem. I don't see the problem, and I'd love to hear that from the county. That's it. Thanks.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for the time. I'm Susan Nielsen. I live at 1764 Tanglewood Trail. We filed a petition that's Holiday, Long Lake Road, Niles, Patterson, Sunnyvale, and Tanglewood. Followed the process that was in the ordinance for exemption, and that's what we're asking for. There are several of us that spent days walking our neighborhood, talking to our neighbors, but mostly listening to our neighbors. And there's great solidarity around not changing the names, the alphabet road names that have been important to the community and have been there for umpteen years. We too don't see a reason. We have not been given any kind of rational, logical reason for why this would take place. All of a sudden, we get a letter in the mail that says your address has changed. So we were informed way too late in the process. I think Debbie and others have covered that. We just don't see a compelling issue to change addresses, numbers, and roads. We've had no emergency responder issues. We have a couple of very elderly folks that have had numerous trips from ambulances out of their homes. We had unique alphabet named roads. The numbered roads are not unique. Most of us have Googled our newly assigned roads, and we are finding the same address as other places. For example, our address exists in New Richmond, and you can say, well, that's a different county. Yeah, well, things will still get mixed up. Our roads are lake roads. They don't fit in a grid. They basically follow the lake shore. They are narrow, they are windy, some are dead ends, some are paved, some are not paved. They were named appropriately as trails, courts, roads, lanes. And they command slower speed limits. A neighbor just told me that they Googled 170th Avenue and it now becomes 45 miles an hour. If you could see Tanglewood Trail and imagine something going 45 miles an hour, which they do, and I have had to call on them, you would be aghast. So we need, our Tanglewood Trail has been carved up into multiple roads. So every twist and turn is a different road and in some cases a different number. Just way too confusing. Here's the deal. We were told we were non-compliant, as are some of the other roads in the petition that we filed, because we have A and B residences. So I looked up and they said it was a non-compliance because the 911 system cannot handle A and B roads. Well, I find it difficult to believe that a software system can't handle A and Bs. So did you think about perhaps giving a few A and B residents a special fire sign? And then I did notice in the manual for the 911 system that you can add notes. So for the A and B addresses, couldn't they have a note for the dispatcher to align that address with that special fire number instead of changing, on my case, 40 addresses
Okay.
because of a couple A and Bs?
Thank you. Any others? Others something upstairs? No, everybody's down here. Okay.
My name is Tom Schmidt. I also live on Tanglewood Trail. And I wanted to reiterate a point that she just made, which is Tanglewood Trail is all one along the south shore of the lake. Well, right now, the way this is set up, it's now going to be two different streets, 170th and 173rd. And right across, so we're 173rd Street, and right across the lake is 173rd Avenue. That's going to cause problems. And if I look on my phone to where my new address is going to be, it shows up on the other side of the lake, about a half mile north. So if nothing else, I need to find somebody to address that issue with, so that if there is a problem, I'm not going to see fire trucks on the other side of the lake while my house burns down. So.
Hi, my name's Mike Sosnick. Our family's had a cabin on Balsam Lake for 75 years. We've had the same address, same road signs. It's worked really well, and it's worked well for our neighbors. I walk around, I talk to our neighbors, and they're all amazed that nobody was informed. It'd be different if we were sent a mailing, a heads up. Hey, this is a big issue. It was well known for well over a year or more before. Send a mailing to this small township. Send a mailing to each of us. Say, here's a major issue. Here's a major change that's coming. So you can go to these meetings. They'll be posted on the bank, posted on the town council board, and put in a tiny little yellow pages. This is where you can find the information. At least let us know that this is coming and this is where the communication is going to be. Because if we were sent and told that we had this option, we'd have gone to the bank, we'd have gone to the meetings early on, as a large number of us would, and we would have shut this thing down right away. The two ladies that spoke earlier, I'd like to give any time that anyone else has for them to continue, because they're very well organized with their thoughts and what they put together. They have more to say, and it should all be heard. This is a great inconvenience for everybody. It's going to be a great cost. I assume Balsam Lake is going to cover all these costs that we're all taking. They're not, of course, but we're all going to assume a lot of costs in changing of licenses and credit cards and bank statements and wills and trusts and documents. There's a lot of that in front of all of us, and we know that's coming. The bigger issue or equal issues are the sentimental history of 50-year, 75-year, 100-year cabins, 20-year, it doesn't matter. There's history in the name Forest Circle. There's no history in the name 126th Street. Very confusing. Looking on a Google map right now. Wait, does this take me to my neighbors, my old neighbors, my new neighbors? Oh, wait, it takes me halfway in between. Wait, it just takes me to their garage. It's a mess right now. That's just one address. And if you go address by address, you're gonna find a ton of inconsistency. And the fire across the lake is gonna be a problem. If we're talking safety issues, what was just created was a major safety. I understand this might be my time, but I'd like to ask that any other member be able to allocate their time to the two people that are so well informed that had more to say.
That's out of order. We can't allow, it's per person. So if anybody else, if you want to designate somebody else to come forward for the group, that's fine. Feel free. You still got time.
Or Worcester Sales, 1760 Holiday Drive. I understand a lot of this was created to make things easier, to make things safer, but as many people have already stated, with GPS, with what we've got for technology today, I don't think the relevance is there. Second, nobody was informed, and once they were, everybody came. Unfortunately, at this particular time, even GPS has already changed all of our addresses. Everything has already been put forward, and it looks like it's going no matter what we say or do, which I don't think should be happening, especially when people's voices haven't all been heard. As are on Holiday Drive, they talk about a grid. We are not north or south, east or west. We are actually on an angle, and being on an angle, that doesn't even apply for us as far as not being able to be on the grid because we're diagonal on it. We also are not non-compliant. There's no A's or B's on our road at all, yet all of our addresses are being changed. I don't understand ours in particular because we aren't non-compliant, or we are compliant. We don't have any A's or B's. We aren't north or south, east or west. We are on an angle. I just don't quite understand why our road in particular got thrown into this whole thing. But as a whole, everybody's got put in this without talking to anybody, because I myself walked our whole street and talked to every single neighbor, and not one neighbor knew about this. And I know many other people did the same thing. They walked around and actually spoke with other people. My question is, why didn't anyone literally speak with anybody on any of these streets saying, is this something, that you guys want, or is there a problem with this? If one person would have been spoken to on each street, they could have gone to all the rest of the neighborhood and talked and done this and gotten back to them. I understand the expense of having to send something out. I get that. But even just talking to one person, a board member, say, okay, these are the streets we're going to do. You take these streets, just talk to one person, then they can talk to the rest of the people. It would have all taken maybe 2 weeks, and you could have gotten a response very easily. So I just believe, like everyone else, that we were not represented as a group like we should have been.
Okay, any others? Any other public comment?
May I think I had at least a minute left. May I?
Once your time is, can't go back up. If you want to tell what you want, somebody else that hasn't been up, let's say, go ahead, but we got our rules, so. Anybody else?
Did you say we can designate our time to somebody that's already
You
spoken?
can't. No, it's per person.
Right, but if
But
one
can't.
person doesn't choose to speak, can they designate the time?
Oh, that's
It's
out
a
of,
reasonable request.
we can't do that, no.
Established by a county board way ahead of us.
Yeah.
My name's Bill Sieber, live at 1774 Holiday Drive. And I have one question for you people. Why did it take 46 years to implement this ordinance? Why did you pass it and then let it sit there? Why don't you have a better idea? Maybe put a 6-month limit on an ordinance when you pass it. And if you don't have the funds for it, it gets erased from the books. Because this wouldn't happen. I just don't understand why it took 46 years. And I don't even know if any of you were on the board. I'm sure you weren't. But the rest of you could have been there. But it's like, why? Why did it take so long? And then let's bury it. And now we won't tell anybody about it. But you guys, you need to do a better job. If you're going to vote on an ordinance, you better have the funding to implement it within 6 months. Because I was told it's not going to cost us anything. That's because you got a federal grant. Well, that money comes from all of us. That's not free money. So that's all I have to say, and I'm against this like everybody else, and it's just awesome. So,
Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
Is there time for questions?
No.
No. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment.
We have more public comments. We just haven't been given enough time to grieve them. We have another 7 minutes. Can we talk for the rest of our 7 minutes?
We've closed public comment.
We have 7 more
I
minutes.
offered 3 times for public comment. Public comment is closed. Moving on. Receipt of information from supervisors not seated on the committee member, and I don't see anybody. Going on to 7, discussion and possible action regarding the rural address change petition for the town of Balsam Lake. It's open for the committee to discuss. At this time, I'd like to say who's going to speak from the county, who's going to speak from the town, and who's going to speak from law enforcement to this issue. I think we should start with the county, then we'll go to the town and the sheriff. So we got somebody from the county to speak?
Sarah.
Lucky me. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah McCurdy. I'm the Environmental Services Division Director. I guess what I'll talk about today is just a brief overview and a history of the rural address numbering system, and then the project that you see before you today. Okay, so the county rural numbering system was adopted, as some folks have mentioned, back in 1978, and it created that county grid numbering system. In this Article 3 that we have before us now is the rural address numbering system ordinance, and that was adopted in 2019. So it really went over an overhaul and took a look at authority, jurisdiction, purpose, history, and then administration of that system. There are 3 factors that identify the physical location of an address off the Polk County rural address numbering grid. Number 1 is the house address. The address number identifies approximate mileage north and south of the county line or west and east of the county line where the access to a property is located. Then there's a street name. A numerical named roadway identifies the approximate miles north and south of county line or west and east of the county line where it's located. And then, as you know, the street type, avenue or street, identifies alignment of the roadway. As I understand it, there were ARPA funding came available for towns to update physical address fire signs to maintain the physical uniform grid. The grid system is designed to promote and aid in the timely and efficient purpose or efficient response of emergency services responders, and is a convenience for delivery services and citizens, especially if digital networks were to go down. So in the Environmental Services Division, zoning is granted the authority to oversee this ordinance, obviously due to our tie to building. But as you know, and as has alluded to, it's a public safety ordinance, and that's why I believe the Sheriff's Department is also here and can make some comments about that. I also know that we have Paul Guyvison, the town chair of Balsam Lake, to talk about the coordinated effort that went back and forth between the town and the county when they were deciding what addresses to do and how to adopt and move forward with their project. And then ultimately, we have Logan Hacker, the new zoning administrator, is available to take a look at each of the roads that are on the petition today and to give you the factual information that we have about those individual petitions. So at this time,
Okay,
we'll move on to maybe the town of Balsam Lake.
Yeah.
yep, Town of Balsam Lake then.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Guidison. I'm the chairman for the town of Balsam Lake. The town started this project back in 2023. We received a letter from the county asking all the towns to participate in this project to change non-compliant addresses. At the annual meeting in 2023, we brought this up to our electors and there were no objections to proceeding with this initiative. So we reached out to Jason, who was still here at the time. We got an initial listing of what addresses were non-compliant, and that listing came up to be approximately 400 addresses that had to change to fix the non-compliant addresses. The board agreed to go ahead and move forward with that. And then we were basically in the holding queue. 16 other towns in the county have taken this process, and we were just behind some of those that had responded earlier than we had done. So we were waiting for our turn to come up for the county then to start working the process. Jason left shortly thereafter, and Brad Brunenberg took over sometime in July or August, and he called me and we initially talked about the project and what it was going to be. At that time, we were looking at non-compliant addresses only, and Brad asked if we were going to do non-compliant or the entire town. We had not talked about that before, so I brought it back to the board at the next meeting, and we looked back at the ordinance, and we thought that if this is what the county is looking for all the towns to do, then we should apply it to the entire town, not just the non-compliant addresses. We felt that getting it all over with at one time was the best thing. And then at this point, the town would be complete and we would never have to do this again as a town project. So the board agreed to that. They passed that motion to accept the county Article 3 ordinance. We passed a resolution in response to that. That resolution was published in the paper, Class 2 notice as required by the law. All of our town meetings and annual meetings are published in the paper. We post in 3 public locations. So there's plenty of information available to the public as to where they can go to find the agendas. And all they have to do is call the town and we'd be happy to give them that information, but we haven't had that. So we moved forward with the entire town. Brad put together the listing. We reviewed the listing. We made a couple of changes where we felt some things could be done a little bit better, but we didn't get into specific addresses because that was in accordance with the grid, and Brad did a wonderful job, I believe, in meeting the grid requirements. So we went ahead and approved the final listing in June. The letters went out in July, and here we are. We did try to notify all of our members with the annual tax statements. I prepared a statement to go into that, and unfortunately, the last person in line is the treasurer to put her dates when she's going to be at the town hall to collect tax statements. She grabbed the wrong file and updated the dates in the wrong file, and that's what was included in the tax mailing. So we missed that opportunity. It was unfortunate, but we did decide as a board at that point that we weren't going to send another mailing to address this topic only. We relied on people getting information from the public notices and from the newspaper. That's all I have unless there's some questions for me.
I've got a lot of questions.
Well, that's at a town meeting.
Questions have to come from the county board. Anybody, any questions for the chairman?
Thank you.
Serious?
Presented correctly. Yeah, I'm like, everybody knew about it. None of us knew. There was no agenda.
There's no discussion, ma'am.
Can we have some questions from the board then?
There's no talking during the meeting. That's how it has to be.
There's no
the
talking.
rules.
There's no interaction.
Town meeting.
This isn't the forum for that.
It's not about. Fortunately, it's not.
Law enforcement representative then for sheriff?
Well, this has been talked about for the entire 6 years I've been in office. Every community that does this, they continue to have these issues. I'll just explain what our grid system is for those of you that don't know. Polk County is about 950 square miles, and the street names actually do have meaning. For example, just south of town is 150th Avenue and 150th Street. That tells me it's, excuse me, that tells me it's 15 miles north and 15 miles from the east border. And so all these numbers mean something to a responder. I can visually, if you tell me your address is 173rd Street, I know that's 17.3 miles from the eastern border of our county. And so when you're talking about responding to an area that has a number, I can find that immediately. I can visualize it in my head. When I'm told Holiday Drive, I had to actually look on my phone to think where Holiday Drive was because I don't go there enough to remember. But as far as technology, it's going to fail you, okay? We see where the GPSs route people down the wrong way. In fact, we just have a bridge that keeps getting struck by semis up by luck because the GPS sends them down that road and it's a low clearance. So we're constantly battling with the bridge that we have. So this was put back in place in the 1970s and it's worked very well. And I was not originally from this county, and I was fortunate because I did lake patrol, so I started learning the lake names. But the average deputy who starts out and didn't grow up here, they don't know where Holiday Drive is, but they do know where 173rd Street is. Because they know that fits on a grid and on a map. And even though technology is fabulous, there's spots in this county that cell phones don't work yet. We haven't perfected that. There's still tower gaps, things like that. So as far as a fire department finding your house if it's on fire, they're going to find it because, well, they're going to see the smoke. But when we get into some of these addresses that are not in compliant, when there's an A, a B, a C, and a D, and it goes on for a quarter mile, as a deputy responding, we don't know. We don't know exactly where that is. And minutes can be life and death if it's a medical issue. So you're not unique in your confusion and in your concern. We recognize that. I think we've all been through this rodeo before, and ultimately, you know, it takes time for Google to catch up. So when you have a new address, it's going to take time. I have land in another county where I put a fire number and it's still not accurate. And that's going on over a year. Google still hasn't caught up to that, but eventually they will. But that number system means something, and it's idiot proof. You know, I can find, you know, with a paper map, I can find anywhere I need to go here. And ultimately, it makes for getting in compliance with the ordinance that, again, is 40 some years old. Well, that's our position is we support the addressing system, the ordinance. It makes for very efficient. And I think there is a process to keep your historic name. You know, I think they've tried to address that. But ultimately in government, you can't please everybody, and we have a standard and we have to stick to the standard. So I certainly support the ordinance. Thanks.
Just a second, Sheriff. Any questions for the sheriff from the committee or comments? I just have one. And this is in our ordinance. If these change, do you feel these changes would or would not affect the ability for law enforcement, ambulance, fire, emergency services to find these homes? The ordinance says, you know, it tasks the committee with voting. The only way that we can forward this is if it would not affect first responders. So it was left the way it was, but now the changes come in. Is it going to improve, enhance response to the patrons, the people that need the services?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're looking at a situation where if you had volunteer firemen that have worked and lived and worked for 50, 60 years, of course they know. They probably know you by name where they're going. But the new era is we have fewer and fewer people working. You know, some of the fire departments are combining. The ambulances have all had to combine services. There's fewer ambulances. And you're talking about, you know, people that likely aren't going to be familiar with Balsam Lake. And, you know, seconds and minutes matter in life and death situations. Ultimately, I think the purpose of the ordinance, it stands on itself. I mean, there's 40 some years of history where it's worked. And I know change is difficult. I recognize that. You didn't present anything new today that we haven't heard from every single community that's gone through this. It's a growing pain with this. No, I don't answer, we're not answering, we can't have questions from the audience. It's not the forum here. So like I say, I support zoning. I support the decision with that this ordinance was passed. So I think it was passed for a purpose.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yep.
As most of you know, I'm in favor of, well, this is not new to our committee. We've had this at Big Lake Drive and
Yep.
didn't we finally settle that so they could have dual, they could keep their address and also have the new grid system?
I guess I'll defer that to zoning.
Yeah, I guess I'm not, I know that in the ordinance, it states that they can have a legacy sign, so it'll say like 133rd Avenue / Birchwood Terrace. But I think their mailing address would be the 133rd. It wouldn't be, you know.
But I think they can also keep their mailing address, their other mailing address like Tanglewood or something.
Okay, yeah, I'm not aware of that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Since 2019, with the adoption of the new rural addressing ordinance, there's no dual addresses. The legacy or the heritage sign they're talking about is a sign that would be placed below, and the actual address would be the physical address. But there is an opportunity to have like a heritage or a legacy sign below. But I mean,
But like in their wills or some of their heritage documents, they could keep their name, and it would be legal. Isn't that what we settled on Big Lake Drive?
yeah, but that's, I think, Supervisor Bonaprise, the very situation you're talking about is why I believe the ordinance was updated with specifics, because we have the communications manager here, and I believe that, I don't know if you want to have her say something about the dual addresses, but I think that's a dispatch nightmare.
I guess that's.
Yeah, there's no two.
Disagree on that. I believe that people should, I believe a lot in our heritage. I may be the oldest one here, but I believe that we should be able to keep our heritage, and I'm not a person, I think it's been proven that new things are not always better. I understand there's big improvements in the grid system, but I don't think that new things are always necessarily better and necessary. And I guess that's where, I went through this on Big Lake Drive in different places, and we agree to disagree. And I think this can be worked out so that they should be able to keep their original address. And if they also, you assign them to a new address in the grid system, I think they would accept that. If we have to go and change our deeds and our wills and everything else, yeah, you people bore a burden to that, an expense to that. And I don't think that's our county's position to make you do that.
Any other comments from the committee?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I'm gonna follow up with John. I was here on the Big Lake issue. And something was worked out where they did keep their heritage.
Yes, it
Church
was.
Lane. And if you go back, I'd asked Mr. Brunberg this question too. If you go on to GPS and the mapping and you look up Church Lane, it's still Church Lane on all of their
Church Road.
addresses. What?
Church Road.
Oh, Church Road, okay.
Yeah.
But it's still on there because you go look under Jensen Road and Bone Lake or Jensen Shore Drive, it's still Jensen Shore and Jensen Shore Drive.
And yeah, is this what township or town is this located in? Jensen?
I couldn't.
It's up by Luck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the existing named roads would be still in Google Maps and stuff like that, unless if they're changed by the county, changed in the 911 system. So, those in particular named roads have not been changed. They haven't to comply to the county grid system. So there's still existing road names that have not been changed to the grid system.
But they've been through this system. I mean,
They would have been,
Garfield has already done this system. And so has Bone Lake, and so I know,
Town of Alden.
Yes.
I
So
talked,
we've all been
and you're
done.
talking, when you talk about GPS system, you're talking about Google Maps?
I don't know, I just had to look it up on,
Yeah.
no, I went on the county site.
Oh. I don't know if you want to speak to that, sir.
I talked to the
Chair. Oh,
fire department in Osceola this morning. And I said, is there any place that you can find even in the county? And he said, absolutely not. He said, with our GPA, you can pinpoint, and he said, we can find any place where a call comes from. That's his response.
Mr. Chair, can I just say a couple more things? Number one, I wanted to point out so folks understand this isn't a public hearing. So when they keep talking about no interaction with the public, I think that's a confusion. So right now he's talking about just each individual agenda item and then talking to staff as they ask questions, but it's not a public hearing. So that's just for your understanding. So that's why there's no discussion back and forth with people. Okay.
That's right.
And then just to reiterate, Supervisor Bonaprise, is that in 2018, there was, I think, a decision made on a specific area of the county. And then that is where the emergence of the new rural addressing ordinance came through that you saw in 2019. And then also to further reiterate, the town of Balsam Lake elected to change their non-conforming addresses. They voted to do that at the town local level. And then we worked back and forth, Brad Runneberg, the GIS coordinator, worked back and forth with the town of Balsam Lake. And Paul, you can correct me if I'm incorrect there, but so that's where it was a local decision in accordance with the county's rural address ordinance. So I just wanted to offer a couple clarifying points there. And Mr. Supervisor Rowdy, where you're talking about some of the towns elected to not change all of those named roads. They elected to keep some of those named roads. So it still is going to be in the county system as some of those named roads. Again, that was the local level control. That's what Bone Lake elected to do through what their supervisors decided to do. Same with Alden and Garfield and other towns. They adjusted some of their non-conforming addresses, like their A and Bs and other things, addresses like that, excuse me. But they elected to keep some of their named roads, whereas the town of Balsam Lake decided to do it in one fell swoop and address everything this time with their funding.
Did these petitions go through the town board level? Or is this directly to the county?
I'm sorry, I keep talking, but Supervisor Hall, the ordinance says that the petitions just come directly to the Public Safety, Public Works Committee. It's spelled out right under exceptions in the ordinance that they come before this committee. And it also spells out that you shall consider such petition, review the same for completeness, and make recommendation to the county board. So today you're seeing each petition. You'll address each road name, each petition, and make recommendation to full county board today. And then they will be at the full county board. So again, I'm just trying to offer some clarification and some information for the committee and even perhaps for some of the constituents.
So can we, at some point, review the ordinance to have petitions go to the townships? And then verified through the county? Is that something that we can add?
Well, considering the ordinance says what it says now and it has its
We have to act.
process, Supervisor Hall, that's something in ordinance revision. I don't know if this committee eventually wants to maybe look at that ordinance again, but right now the due process is it does not go to the town. The town would perhaps say they made their decision at this time. And then that's why the petition comes then to the county board or this committee initially.
Mr. Chair, I just got one more. I got a hard time. I could never vote on anything like this because I think there's a disconnect here. Now, these people here all said they didn't know anything about this until it was after the fact. And then I think your town chairman said, well, there was a mix up between the clerk and they decided not to send it out to the individuals. Well, these people need to be totally informed on everything, and I think that's why there's a lot of them here today, because first of all, there's a confusion in not being, I mean, everybody has a right to know what the process is. I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but I just gotta, I represent District 15, but also everybody in the county. That's why we're here to vote, and I'm just appalled that you people, I think you're honest in saying that we didn't even know about this till it was done. Something's gotta be made right here.
I just need to remind the committee that we are here to enforce, you know, the right-of-way system, the right-of-way, you know, all the section 2860 of the right-of-way public places and rural address system. It specifically states in here. Now, we've had our sheriff tell us that if these changes weren't happen, it would definitely affect the services that they provide. So in paragraph B, it says that the committee may recommend approval only if it finds implementation of the articles of the subject property or affected street would not aid first responders, services, emergency medical services, protective services, law enforcement, and civil defense. Okay. What that's saying is we're here to support and hear from our staff what their recommendations are for this situation. The ordinance is gives us clear direction that if our staff says that it would affect responders and fire and the sort, that we can't approve this. So we need to follow the direction we have in our current ordinance or rewrite it then. Okay, sit down and rewrite it if people aren't happy with it. But, and I mean, that's the direction we have to follow as a committee. It's clear in the article, it explains what we're supposed to do. And that's where we are right now. You know, these people need to work this out with the town. They need to go back and work it out with the town, but we need to support our staff, both in the zoning area and law enforcement, that they say they need this and it's gonna increase service level, and that's where we need to go, in my opinion.
Can I ask a question to the council? I always like to put you on the spot. What you get paid for. I addressed this issue 47 years ago when it first came out. I sat in the little room here when I was a sheriff and tried to figure out how we would address a system like Balsam Lake, and that's the one we used as a idea of what to do. And I'll guarantee you, the impression at that time hasn't changed a bit. It's actually an impossible deed to satisfy all. Do you think, my question to you, legal question is, do you think it would be appropriate to readdress our ordinance as written so that we could bring it to each and every township for input as to how it may affect them or may not affect them if we did change it? Whereas, as Steve's impression is, and mine also, is that we really can't do much about it with the ordinance that's existing at the time. The sheriff told us, for one thing, that it would affect him. And that's putting us into legal potential litigation in the future, big time. And so if we're going to do anything, act on this at this forum or this meeting, I think what we should be doing is readdressing the ordinance so it's more specific as to how we can address this situation, if possible.
Sure, and so I can touch on a couple of things. I can't opine on the appropriateness of doing such a thing. I can say you theoretically can amend the ordinance such that you could create language that would allow people to retroactively go back and reconsider petitions. It is possible to structure something that way, and you would certainly have the authority to do that. But I can't say whether it would be, I think it's just a bad choice of words. I can't opine on the appropriateness of doing that. That's ultimately your political decision and the political decision of the board. So yes, feasibly, something like that can be done. And if you have a concern that this particular process doesn't provide the amount of due process that the board might have wanted to have in place, then it certainly would be appropriate to modify it so that the board has a level of due process in place that the board wants. But as to your second point, whether or not you have a whole lot of leeway for today, the answer is no. I think Chair Warndall is correct that the committee has a set of petitions in front of them today, and the set of rules that are in front of the committee today limit your ability to act in any particular way. Again, whether that can change, if the ordinance changes, absolutely. But for today's purposes, the restriction on exceptions is clear as Chair Warndall has pointed out.
You got it. Anybody else?
Just to make sure the committee's clear on what they're doing, I think Chair Warndall has pointed out what exactly the findings are, but I would ask that the committee to make very specific findings on what you are deciding, because that does have to go into a report that gets presented to the clerk at the end of the meeting. So I would ask you to be clear on exactly what you're finding, and I would ask you to be clear on each of the roads, what the findings are. So delineate. These are the findings on this particular road, on each petition, sorry. So each petition, I don't want to run into a situation where we're just blanket saying everything is exactly the same, because that's not necessarily going to be right.
Chairman, I want to follow up, and you were in the corporate council, and that so many things have been said today with giving the town time and look back at the exceptions, but can't we postpone this and let the people go to the town of Balsam Lake and deal with it in due time? You say we were told we're going to make a decision today. But can't we postpone until these citizens have a chance to go back and have their public meeting and discuss it amongst them the way it should have been done in the first place?
That's my question. I would like to make a move to postpone it, but would that be okay, council?
Again, the problem is that our ordinance, once a petition is filed, unless they retract their petitions, which I'm not suggesting anyone necessarily do, the committee has a set of petitions in front of them, and the ordinance allows the committee to act in two ways. Move on to the board with approval suggestion, or move on to the board with a denial suggestion. Those are the two different outcomes for what's in front of the committee today. Unfortunately, I think we are restricted by the rules as set forth by the county board in the ordinance.
So you're looking for a motion?
Not yet. I still have a question for corporate counsel. Well, not so much a question, but a verification. I remember when we went through this before. Okay.
Yeah, we do.
And Malia Malone made it clear that the county would have liability should they not change addresses to the grid system. They may not have liability for the person that signed the paper, but if Aunt Mabel is visiting and she has a stroke and there's some delay of any kind to get services to her, an attorney would take advantage of that. No offense. So, you know, she made it clear that we have liability. So I mean, are we gonna sit here and, you know, set ourselves up for a liable? I mean, I think that's what we're doing. I want you to verify that that's what we're doing.
So theoretically, I'll start by saying I don't like to give specific advice on liabilities of acting in any particular way in open session.
She said that too.
I will generally say that theoretically, a crafty attorney could certainly file litigation that could make a good argument
Yeah.
that we are liable because we didn't act in a particular way. We have a set of ordinances that sets out this grid pattern that provides safety to to people based upon it. So in theory, generally speaking, without having a specific set of facts, I would agree with Attorney Malone on that opinion.
But like my question was, I believe on the Big Lake settlement, they did accept the grid, but they also had the right to keep their existing address.
And I can touch on that as well. So in 2023, the board amended the ordinance with resolution number 1123. And that amendment changed the language in section 2856. It changed the language to, it had previously said a historic road name sign, a historic road name may be kept on the road sign with the new road name. These road signs should be the new road number followed by the historical road name. And then it gives an example, 180th Avenue / the county drive. That language that allowed for basically a dual address was stricken and replaced with new language that essentially does not allow that to exist, which is what Ms. McCurdy was pointing out. That changed just last year where that language was modified. So that is not, the way that it was previously is not currently allowed under our ordinance. It would be, as Ms. McCurdy pointed out, the legacy sign under a sign, but your address, if your road name changed, your address as you would have to list it on things would be only the new address.
Well, I wasn't aware that that was ever stricken.
So what you're saying is by resolution that,
That ability was taken away last year.
so that's not there, but they could still historically mark the road.
Correct.
So that they can keep that designation.
Legacy sign.
So,
And again, whether that changes in the future is possible. Obviously, it was changed just last year. You change back, you change a lot of things. And I think, Jay, to your question, whether the ordinance provides basically a second bite at the apple, trying to structure language that would allow such a thing if we change the ordinance in the future, and you can theoretically structure language that would allow such a thing. But for today, we can't address
No.
a lot of those concerns today.
Right. Yeah.
okay, so, little advice support with council. You're telling me that I need to go through the entire A through G and the committee needs to vote on each one?
My suggestion, I know that the sheriff had made more or less a blanket statement that I believe obviously would be truthful, that generally a general change to the grid system is going to be more safe than not, and that there isn't necessarily a good reason to not do it. I don't want to speak for you, Sheriff. I'm trying to paraphrase you. What I would suggest, if the sheriff would be willing, is if the committee would address each of the road changes, that each of them be talked about in specific and have at least a very brief discussion about where the road is, what the benefits are to what the petition is requesting, and then go over basically what the petitions are. So that you can make a specific finding to each one. You could also just accept the blanket. You know, generally speaking, there is no scenario where a change to the street names wouldn't benefit law enforcement. I don't know whether that's true or not. It's possible that that's true, but it, you know, leaves space for question of fact. Did I say that
So,
clearly?
Yeah,
Right.
so do we have a presentation that would identify each of these locations? And
Yeah, we have some information for sure on
Thank-
each one of these.
I believe that that is in order at this point. We will listen to what you say about A, and then we will vote on A. We will listen to what you say and show us about B, and we will vote on B. We'll go down the line until we get through the alphabet.
Can I ask one more question? Do we have any information about or visuals of the difference, how it pulls up in the CAD system for a named street versus a numbered street?
As far as pulling up in what system?
A computer aided dispatch, the police officer.
We use their system. We use the county system.
So
what
whether,
they'll be able to display is what we see.
Okay, we will listen to information and make observations about A.
Got a motion on that?
I think we're okay until we make a motion on approval or disapproval. Listen to the presentation on each one.
Claire, if you could pull up the Anderson Lane.
PDF.
Oh, sorry, the PDF. So this is the map of Anderson Lane and Anderson Court. In reviewing the petition, so as 2860 says, reviewing this petition for completeness, and also, as the chair said, if it would, their reasoning would enhance or aid or would not aid personal or sheriff or emergency personal services to reach them. So in reviewing the petition itself, Anderson Lane and Anderson Court, they did have all the required signatures that were affected by this change. There were no A's or B's on Anderson Court or Anderson Lane. There is potentially one buildable lot on Anderson Court, which this is the screenshot, or yeah, you can see it, which is down here. So as the ordinance states, when a new building, if there were a new building to be built there, our ordinance states that at that time, the ordinance requires that to be changed to a numbered road. So I just wanted to include that in saying that the ordinance would require a change at a later date if there was a dwelling put on that. As far as the petition itself, I can pull that out. I believe you guys were all received copies of those and the reasoning that they had with each one. In regards to the specifics of the ordinance, and it would not aid services by keeping it the same. They have here on that it would create confusion for emergency response time because there is 2 addresses currently. So to answer to that, both addresses are active in the system for 9 months for there to be a lapse time. So they can state either address to dispatch and that will be found in the dispatch system. Otherwise, as far as directly, they have that on multiple occasions, the police and fire departments have been able to find them. But there really isn't anything directly stating that changing it, as the sheriff stated, would not aid them. You know, there's nothing in here that explains a difference to that opinion, I guess. So as far as, I just wanted to go over, like, if it was, were to be approved, Anderson Lane was given 179th Street, which then coming down 179th Street, all the numbers, so the red is the new numbers, are greater than that because they're heading west. And heading east, they're less than that. So both of these would be changed if it were to remain the same. But as I said, there were no A's or B's on this section of road, but just so you can get an idea of where the grid placed these addresses by stating this private road is 17.9 miles west of the East County line, Anderson Court. That private road running east and west is 13.8 miles north of the South County line. And it was also a little confusing as this was all Anderson Court. So it came to a T, which when roads generally come to Ts, it should change to an avenue or a street, depending on which. So it was a little confusing coming to a T before. This has a street coming off of 140th Avenue down to another east-west road, which then is 138th Avenue. So that's the general description on this specific petition. I just want to see if I had anything. All new addresses would be, on the conforming grid system if they were to be upheld as they are proposed.
Okay, that's the information we have on A. We have all the information that I've given. We have all the information that our staff has given us. A yes would be forwarding to county board, and no would be not forwarding to county board. Roll call vote.
Sorry, just to clarify, it's not that it wouldn't get forwarded to the county board. It gets forwarded to the county board regardless. It's just whether with the approval of the committee or without.
Okay. So yes is approval, and no is not approved.
So someone should make
Yeah, you need a motion.
motion in one direction or the other.
Okay.
If there's question on what a particular vote means, because
Okay.
it's very possible that there's a motion to move to the county board with the disapproval.
Yeah, okay.
Just want to make sure that everyone's clear on how they're voting when they vote.
I would make a motion to send this to county board with the approval of the change.
And so that motion would be to grant the requested exception.
Right.
So keeping the legacy.
Explain that again. I'm lost a little bit on our voting.
So the motion was to approve the petition to grant an exception. So they're asking to keep their legacy name. That motion is that they be allowed to keep the legacy name.
That's what a yes motion would be, or no?
That would be a yes. So if you vote yes, you're saying that the exception should be granted and they get to keep their legacy name.
Yeah, that's that clear, Doug? And what was your motion on the floor?
To approve it. To approve the exception.
Approve the exception.
For discussion purposes, that's telling the county board that we agree to change it back to the original addressing system, basically, and exposing us again to litigation.
If that's a question, potentially.
Well, it was in discussion, so I want to make clear that they understand that we are exposing the county to more litigation by approving this without any changes in the ordinance as it exists. Discussion only. How you vote's up to
Yeah,
you.
we can vote.
Any second? Any second to his motion?
Second.
Motion made to forward A to the county board. With the exception. Roll call vote.
Steve Wornall,
No.
John Bonfries,
Still not clear on what this motion says.
A yes vote would mean that you are moving it to the county board with the recommendation that the legacy name remain,
That's the address.
the legacy address.
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
Yes.
Jay Luke,
No,
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
That's 3 yeses and 2 nos.
Moving on to B.
B is Birchwood Terrace. We have a map for that one. So on the screen here, Birchwood Terrace is location. It is off of South Deer Lake Circle currently. There were all the required signatures on the petition. This road didn't have any A's or B's, any other suffixes on this terrace, Birchwood Terrace. There is 2 potential buildable lots that I could determine on this road as the same as the other one, where if a new build were to go in and it would trigger address to be issued on that, it would per ordinance be changed to a numbered road at that time. An interesting characteristic about this specific one is South Deer Lake Circle was also changed to 176th Street, and then this whole stretch, you can't see the rest of South Deer Lake Circle is 133rd Avenue. So if this petition were approved just for the knowledge of the committee, that would affect South Deer Lake Circle, although they don't have a petition in here. So staff would likely have to change something with that, if I'm correct on that. That makes sense, Brad, because that would change. It's how 176th Street comes in here, that would then create numbers less than 1760 to the west of it. So I just wanted to be clear on that one, because it comes off of South Deer Lake Circle and South Deer Lake Circle is changing. There's an added layer to that one. But other than that, they have in their petition, a lot of the similar things. The confusion of 2 addresses could delay emergency response time, so they had that in direction to why it would not aid emergency services. They had concerns of it not being a through street, delaying the responding, and that they have been able to be located with their current addresses. So those are the parts of the petition where they tried to address the part of the ordinance that requires them to prove that it would not aid emergency services. And that is all I have on that one.
The same. Exposed to litigation.
Before I entertain a motion, any other discussion? I just have Sheriff Walk, I'd like to include you on each and every one of these.
I'm opposed to changing any of them just because, for the simple fact that it's your ordinance. This ordinance was written, it's been in place for 40-some years. If that decision falls to you, if you want to, as a board, collectively change that. I'm just saying my position is the grid system favors our response time. We know what it means. We can find any address with the grid system. We still find addresses without it, but I've been around long enough where you end up knowing it, but these rules are in place for a reason. So my position is I'm in favor of your ordinance. I like your ordinance. If you choose to change it, that'll be on you.
And is that now part of the minutes?
That's
in the
recording, but
It's in a
no,
recording?
we don't do
Okay.
it.
All right, as long as it's in a recording. It's okay. Motion then on B.
I'll make a motion to approve the exception for Birchwood Terrace.
Just to clarify the motion. Motion would be to move it to the board with approval,
Correct. Thank you.
with a recommendation for approval. Sorry,
Is there a second?
Of their petition.
correct.
Is there a second?
Second,
Motion made in second, roll call vote.
Steve Wornall,
No?
John Bonfries,
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
yes.
Jay Luke,
No,
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
3 yeses and 2 nos.
Moving on to C, Tanglewood Trail, Holiday Drives.
So yeah, this petition came in, all as one petition. So I'm gonna pull it up here. And on this petition, there were numerous signatures missing from a variety of the roads. So as far as completeness on the petition, I would state that it appears they are not complete because they do not have all the signatures, from every property owner that has an address on that road. I can still go through and explain the changes. That would be up to you, Chair.
Yeah, before you do that, legal opinion, then, this is an incomplete petition. It's not to be considered, correct?
So it still has to get considered. The ordinance pretty clearly delineates that this committee should not put something forward to the board, the suggestion for approval, if it is not a complete petition. So even though doesn't have all the signatures, it does not meet the requirements, but it's still in front of the committee, and the committee still has to act with sending it to the board with one way or another. So it still has to get considered, still has to get voted on, but the ordinance is pretty clear that if it's not complete, that it should go with a disapproval.
Hearing that, looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we send it to the county board without approval due to the fact that the petition is not complete.
Second.
Motion made in second to forward the county board and not recommend approval. Is that correct? Okay. Roll call vote.
Steve Wornall,
No. Yes.
John Bonfries,
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
No.
Jay Luke,
Yes.
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
4 yeses and 1 no.
Moving on to Mirror Waters.
Mere Waters, out of the 19 properties that I located, my review shows that we're missing one signature, from a property owner on that road. So that would be, I can still go through that one, but it appears through my review that not all signatures were received.
Okay. Based on that information, I'll entertain a motion then for Mirror Waters.
I'll make a motion to approve with recommendation for Mirror Waters.
With recommendation?
Correct.
Motion to accept.
Can you clarify what?
Can we do that?
It sounded like, if I'm hearing correctly, the Jeremy's motion is to move it forward with recommendation for approval of the petition, which would mean that the legacy names stay. Again, my understanding is that there's at least one signature missing, meaning that the petition would not necessarily meet the factual basis for completeness. Just so we're all understanding things.
Chair, I also would like to add something to that.
Go ahead.
My initial one was just stating that there weren't the signatures, but I would still, if you would like, I could go through the review of that road before, but that is totally up to you.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. I mean,
I just wasn't sure if I wanted to get a recommendation due to the.
okay.
Do you want me to rescind my motion?
I think it can stand until we look at the information. Then you can decide at that time if you want to rescind.
Discussion, yes.
So Mere Waters is on the east side of Deer Lake. This street, or it would be a street if it were renamed, does have the A's, and I believe there may be a B, but there's for sure A's on this road. So that one does have the alpha character after the number, which is, is different than just having the road name changed. We have received guidance from USPS regarding the difficulty as far as the mailing services by having these suffixes, but I just wanted to point out that this road does have those A's. So there is a 1303 and a 1303A. So there are addresses along this that do have the same number, but they just are distinguished with that A character behind it. As I stated, they were missing one signature. There is one potentially buildable lot up on lot 18, which, as the other stated, or the other petitions, it could trigger this renamed to a numbered road at that time. So if it were to be recommended for approval, we would be keeping these A's on the road. And there's a potential it would be readdressed at a later date. If the recommendation were to be denied, those alpha suffixes would be corrected and it would be given the 165th Street, which is on the grid system.
The access to that road is the town road on the east side of the lake.
No, it comes off of US Highway 8.
Oh,
So it's the A's and B's that are giving us headaches too. So, I mean, it's important too. They got same number, same address, only A and B.
Correct.
And again, when minutes count, seconds count, that's what it's about. So.
And as the project as a whole, not specific to this petition, in other towns, the A's and B's have been changed, as part of this project, rather than the road name versus non-road name changing. That usually wasn't the argument. It was, most towns changed. I believe, I don't want to say all, but I believe all of them did change the alpha suffix on their addresses that participated in the project. Some towns didn't participate at all in the project.
so if you got a mailing, so you have an apartment, then you don't have an A and B on a. That's right. Two residents in an apartment?
So the current addressing ordinance gives a specific unit after the address. So it'd be, if there's a 2-unit apartment, it would be, well, it can be a variety of different things, but we can give unit A and unit B if it's on the same property. But if it's on different properties, they would have their own specific number.
No, I'm talking about the same property.
Yeah, so if there was, it would be 1303 unit A, unit B, which that's able to be distributed per the mail service better than 1303A in the actual address itself. So that's how they are distinguished currently, is the unit with a unit.
Works now.
Okay, Supervisor Hall, are you gonna leave your motion as is or change it or? Yeah, and that's. As is?
As is.
Looking for a second to the motion.
Reread the motion.
It's to send with approval.
Did Doug already second? Supervisor Rowdy already.
All right, roll call vote.
Now, what is a yes and no again?
So a yes vote means it goes to the board with recommendation for approval. So recommendation for approval means you're approving the requested exception, which means that the legacy name would remain. So a yes is that the legacy name remains.
Contrary to our ordinance.
Yeah. Roll call vote.
Steve Wornall,
No.
John Bonaprise,
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
I'm gonna vote no.
Jay Luke,
No,
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
That is 3 noes and 2 yeses.
Moving on to Pinewood Road, I mean, I think we should have your presentation on each one.
Okay.
And,
Pinewood Road is just to also off of Highway 8. It is proposed to be changed to 179th Street, and then the properties would be on 132nd Avenue as that comes to a T and then branches out. There are 8 properties on Pinewood Road. From the petition we received, I located 7 signatures. So I only saw, or was missing 1 signature from a property owner. This stretch of road does not have any alpha suffix on them. Like the last one, there are no potentially buildable lots on this specific section of road. So as the other ones were, there was a possibility of it being changed at a later date per the ordinance. Going that route, it wasn't. And this one also has the dual roads coming into it. So it's coming off of US 8, which runs east and west. So we made a street coming off of the avenue, and then at the T, it's made 132nd Avenue again. So both of those would likely, be removed. It would just remain Pinewood Road, which comes to a T and then splits, which could possibly cause confusion, having one road going 3 different ways. And that is all I had on that one. I can review their petition. As far as them referencing why it would not aid, they have that they believe the 2 addresses would cause a delay. But as I stated before, the 2 addresses is a grace period where they both work. So then the second address would fall off. They had that they've been able to receive emergency responses as it is currently. But there isn't anything that says why changing it would not aid the emergency services to be located.
Any discussion? For a motion then? For Pinewood.
So I'll make a motion to send it to the board with approval.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the Board, County Board with approval from the committee. Roll call.
Steve Wornall,
No.
John Bonaprise,
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
Yes.
Jay Luke,
no,
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
3 yeses and 2 noes.
On to F, 1500 block of 170th County Road I.
Sorry, Chair. I apologize. I should have caught it at the time. I think on
Mirror Waters.
Mirror Waters, there was a motion to send to the board with approval, and that lost. That motion failed. However, no subsequent motion to send to the board without approval or with disapproval was made. So I think we need to have a motion on the Mirror Waters petition again. That motion being contrary to sending it on without.
So the difference is they're sent it to the board without approval or disapproval.
Right.
Doesn't that say the same thing in that same language? I don't get this.
So the problem is, the motion is made to send to the board with recommendation or without recommendation. I think the language is a little bit different. Or recommend that the board approve or disapprove the petition. So you are making a recommendation to the board. The motion that was put forward on Mirror Waters was that it be sent to the board with a recommendation that they approve the petition. That failed. Just because that motion failed doesn't mean that obverse is true. It just means that a new motion needs to be made to send it for disapproval.
I would make that motion that it be sent to the board for disapproval.
On Mirror Waters.
Correct.
Second.
Motion made and second to disapprove sending to the county board for Mirror Waters.
Roll call. I have one clarification.
Yep.
Is that the one with A's, B's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Roll call vote.
Steve Wornall,
No. I mean, yes. I don't know, so I got so many no's. I'm writing each one of them down here, so.
John Bonaprise.
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
Yes.
Jay Luke.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's 5 yeses.
Okay, moving then back to F, 1500 block of 170th Avenue, County Road I.
This petition was missing 3 signatures. They didn't address in their petition on why or any reasons of why this would not aid emergency services. Most of the petition was regarding multiple businesses being at a property and not, the cost of changing the address for that reason. The reason this one was changed, and so this is just west of town here. The original fire numbers, I believe, were addressed off of the village and town limits. So I believe before they started at 1500 here and addressed down County Road I. But the actual 150th block is here. So this is actually the 1/4 mile block. So there was a utility put in here that is 1525 and these shouldn't be the same number. But all these numbers shifted down approximately a 1/4 mile to accommodate starting at the wrong spot in the first place. The numbers weren't out of sequence, so there was no nonconformity in that instance. They were still in order, getting larger from east to west. They were just off a 1/4 mile due to that starting place being in the wrong location, which it's easy to see what happened. They just went to the edge of the village and started there, but the 1500 block actually starts 1 mile or a 1/4 mile, into the village.
So what's their address now?
We may have to pull up. 'Cause Brad, I believe these ones, they weren't the same fire number, right? I was just gonna make note of that 1546 address was actually originally 1526. So there's a 0.2 of a mile gap between 1525 and 1526. So that's a big shift, and it would be difficult to assign a new address within that distance, so.
If there were future development, in this area on either side of the road for almost, not quite, but almost a quarter mile, at that time, it would trigger a address change because we would not be able to issue a conforming address to that location. But the rest of these, like I said, they were all in sequence, but there's just this.
So are they all by a number or a name?
This is a named road, so there's no issue with the road name. They were already 170th Avenue, County Road I believe. That didn't change, that the county roads changed, I don't know when, but so it's remaining 170th Avenue, County Road I. That's not changing. It was just a numbering change to get these in line with that 1 mile block. So the main point was to get them for future development, if there were one, we wouldn't have to readdress it. But that could be a year from now, 5 years from now,
We
10 years.
vote yes, it's already under a numbering system.
Correct. It's already numbering. The numbers would just be changing.
How many people would it affect that would have to change their address?
So there's on here. The 3 signatures we were missing, I believe, were these 2 and then this storage unit. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 addresses on that property, or on that stretch of road. And we were missing 3 of the signatures out of those 9. So if the petition were approved, it would go back to how it is. If it were denied, we would be remaining to change 9 addresses in that stretch.
And they're currently a quarter mile off, you're saying?
So yeah, they're starting. Yeah, correct. They are starting at 1500 here for the. I don't know what.
Yeah, the green numbers on there were actually the new updated numbers that ended up on that map. So Logan, I don't know if you want to look at this map.
Pull up the G. Oh, you have.
That's the current map. So before they were changed, this was 1526. This property was 1539, 1540, 1543. So this property being 1543 was past the half mile mark of the road. So they are off in block, but they were still remaining in sequence. So it wasn't jumping from, 40 to 30 or anything. It wasn't out of order. It's just, it wasn't in compliance with how the block lays out.
But they're all under the numbering system.
They are all under the numbering system. Yep, their address is 1557, 170th Avenue, County Road I. So that's not changing. It's just, we would be changing their numbers. Their fire numbers would change, but their road name would remain.
I would make a motion for approval to the county board.
Motion made and seconded to move forward to the county board with approval. This committee. Roll call vote.
Steve Wornall,
No.
John Bonaprise,
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
Yes.
Jay Luke,
Yes.
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
That is 4 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, the final one is Dry Creek Road.
In review of the petition for Dry Creek Road, I indicated that they are missing one signature. I believe it was 1751 was the one that we were missing from my review. This stretch of road, which was proposed to be changed to 176th Street, or currently is 176th Street, has no A's or B's on this stretch of road. I did not locate any potential buildable sites that were on the lake side of the road, which would force a change at a later date. If it were to be approved, it would remain in sequence, but the named road wouldn't be on the grid. It would just remain Dry Creek Road. Whereas if it remains how it was changed to, it'd be 17.6 miles from the east county line. If it's denied, the road would align with the grid system, and the property fire numbers would also be on the grid. And in their ordinance, or not their ordinance, in their petition, they have that police and fire departments had no prior trouble locating their homes. As far as in regard to the section of the ordinance that is requesting them, proving that it would not aid, I believe that is the only part where they said that they have no problem currently, but they didn't state why changing it would not aid our police and fire departments and other emergency personnel.
Okay, any discussion? Entertain a motion to G, Dry Creek Road.
I'll make a motion to send for approval. The accounting board. Accept.
There a second?
No second.
Roll call vote.
What does yes and no mean, council?
I believe the motion was to send to the board with a recommendation for approval. So a yes vote means that you are sending it with the purpose of keeping the legacy numbers and names.
Roll call vote.
Steve Horndahl,
No.
John Bonaprise.
Yes.
Doug Rowdy,
Yes.
Dee Luke,
No,
Jeremy Hall.
Yes.
That is 3 yeses and 2 nos.
Okay. Well, while we're on the subject, law enforcement and one supervisor. Morning when the pager went off at 11:30 before my hand hit the door handle. I knew exactly where I was going. And that's because of the job you people do. I had directions, I had the closest road, I had everything I needed to get there. So I understand what you're up against with this issue here. And then one question for corporate counsel. We just violated our own ordinance?
So the petitions are there. The ultimate determination of whether or not we're violating the ordinance is the board to vote on.
Okay.
So
gotta go to the court.
Well, hopefully we won't get our fingers slapped on. I want to take a 5-minute break. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
I was just gonna mention that.
to it.
Runs together at the planning council. Yep. Oh, yeah.
They're still original. Ma'am? Okay, number 8. Intro to the bike pedestrian plan.
That's me.
Hey, there you are.
Oh, good, Tim.
Dr. Tim.
Yeah, you guys are lucky you get to hear me again today. I just thought I'd give a quick overview and introduction of the bicycle and pedestrian plan for your purposes. This was something that we applied for a grant based on Resolution 5419 that the county board approved a while ago, and it's been delayed a few times because, well, my position was vacated by myself, and now I'm back. So here we are, and we're working with West Central Regional Planning on this project. It is 80% funded through Transportation Alternatives Program grant funds. So the amount due for the county is roughly 12 grand to develop this plan versus about 60 grand for the total project. And based on the funding sources, which is the Transportation Alternatives Program, the plan will actually focus on alternative means of getting from place to place by bicycle and pedestrian for transportation purposes. There can be a recreational component, but it's definitely secondary to transportation purposes. The planning process will be about a year long. And again, we'll be working directly with regional planning on this process. I think every other county in our region, the West Central region, has developed one of these plans, and regional planning has developed most of those plans. So we'll be using the data from Bering County and St. Croix County to help connect those networks, the bicycle and pedestrian networks from county to county, so they're as seamless as possible. The process is going to include public participation, as you might guess. We're going to have an advisory committee, several open houses, an online survey, and municipal discussions about the routes for bicycle and pedestrians in the county. A project website is going to be developed soon with details about the plan and the process, and also show engagement activities and dates on that website. The plan is going to include route analysis and recommendations for new and updated routes for bicycles and pedestrians, along with projects and including destinations or designations, of existing routes that may already be in place. Part of that analysis is going to be including gaps in the network that may exist right now. So if you're trying to get, for example, from Dresser to St. Croix Falls, what are some of the issues getting to and from on a bicycle or by foot between those two communities? The focus of this plan is going to be connections between those communities, connections to neighboring counties, and to other important sites in the county, such as parks. A draft plan will go through this committee to get recommendation to the county board, and ultimately the county board will need to adopt this. Again, the process is going to be about a year long from this date forward. And then after adoption, the plan gets sent to the Department of Transportation just for their records. There's no approval process at the DOT. That's kind of the overview I have for you guys for the bicycle and pedestrian plan.
Is this already funded?
Yeah, we've had the funding from a couple of years ago, just keeps rolling through. Yep.
Hold over.
Yep.
Any questions?
Was this one of our priorities? Sorry, I'm getting caught up here.
Well, based on the county board's adoption of resolution 5419, yeah, they thought it was a good idea at the time. Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
Fair Society update. I don't see anybody here for that. I guess we could,
You want to discuss what Rod did at the meeting?
sure.
Rod Polk attended the meeting of the Fair Society on August 22nd. He presented the latest estimates for the grandstand from GT Grandstand, the latest estimate from our engineers. They were working with GT Grandstands, which was the preference of the fair. That estimate was $1.7 million for the grandstand. We did introduce another option, which was permanent bleacher seating, which doesn't have a roof. Same capacity, around 1,200 some there, and that estimate was $499,000, but does not include the concrete work. Safe estimate with that one would be approximately $600,000.
So they were gonna go into closed session and discuss the financing. So that was on the 22nd.
And I appreciate Rod attending that meeting for me that I couldn't make.
May I ask him another question?
Go ahead.
So when do you think, or who's gonna have, is it gonna be our full county board that's gonna have the jurisdiction on the roof or not?
Yes, well, as soon as I hear back, I had an email into the fair president asking for the latest update from the fair so that I can set up a meeting with our ad hoc committee, which Supervisor Warrendahl and Supervisor Luke sit on, that we can discuss with the fair.
I've had some people contact me about that, about a roof or not, according to the number of events that are generally scheduled there. Or as being cost effective.
A roof on those bleachers is approximately 500,000.
And what were their concerns, John? Were they wanting a roof or not?
Basically, yeah, everybody thought the roof was too expensive for the number.
Did they know how many?
For the number of events that we have generally had there. You know, there's comments both ways, but for the number of people that contact, some of them were very vociferous.
Real adamant about it.
I don't know where they got their numbers. This is the first they've come out, right?
Was the 22nd, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else for the fair? CJCC update.
So I could provide that report. Melissa's doing home visits right now. She reports that in August, GJCC had 10 participants in the treatment court program, 4 in substance diversion, 1 in IDIP, and the first time offender class wasn't run because of a scheduling difficulty. It'll resume in September. We have a treatment court graduation happening this Friday, and we would love to have members of the board and the public join in. The court itself starts at 9 o'clock, and it's really a wonderful opportunity to see how our judge and the diversion program participants interact around a pretty joyful time, this graduation. There'll be a reception following court at around 10 o'clock. So welcome all to attend.
Any questions or comments? I think an email was sent out to every county board member to inviting them to that graduation, so.
What was the date of the graduation again?
This Friday.
It'll be this Friday, sir.
This Friday. At
9 a.m. for the court, 10 a.m. for the reception.
I went to the August one and it didn't turn out that there was a graduation, but I listened to each one of the participants that made a statement to the judge. And boy, the enthusiasm about the program, I was certainly surprised and happy that they were that enthusiastic.
It's an intense program.
It is very much.
And it's so that intensity displays itself quite well in the.
Any of us supervisors that don't really realize that, we're missing something.
Okay, update from Public Works.
All right, I'm filling in for Rod this month. So I do have an update with some photos, if we can get that up.
Oh, don't go there. We don't.
Yeah. All right, so some updates from Public Works Division, which includes some of my projects in parks. So our ATV, UTV intensive use area, just some in progress photos there. The trail work itself is complete.
The parking lot is complete. You can see the parking lot lower left there. Example of a trail with some of the features. There is a small jump on the upper right. And then the main entrance into the park area, the lower right there. The fencing and gates, we are still waiting for that to be installed. Fencing material is supposed to be arriving this Wednesday. And then it's supposed to take them about a week to get that finished off. All the posts are in. They're just waiting on the wire material. And then also we have to install the signage. The signs are ordered and in production right now. Once we get those, we'll get the posts in the ground and get those signs
How
up.
long is the distance on the fence?
Oh, boy. It's about,
I believe it's 60 acres.
yeah, it's a 60 acre, so whatever the perimeter of 60 acres is, how long the fence is.
Better know that.
So we hope to have that opened up by the end of the month.
And, what's the purpose of the fence? I mean, this is open 24 hours a day for riders, right?
It's mostly to delineate the property. We don't want ATVs, UTVs getting off trail and just blazing through to get somewhere else. We want to be able to contain, once you're in there, we want them contained in there.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's built in a way to allow wildlife to go through and everything as well. So, and if we need to, there is a gate access. The purpose of the gate itself is to allow emergency access. So that main two-way road that goes right through that photo there, that'll be gated, but then the ATVs and UTVs will go through a space to the right of that. So they'll be able to go in and out as they need. And then the gate will be allowed for emergency access or maintenance access.
That's the gate.
This would be the gate area for emergency responders to open the gate and go into the park. And then this is gapped enough for a UTV machine to go through to get into the park.
Okay. Might I suggest that a map of, and are they, these different areas, are they designated by name or?
Yes, there's 3 different trails, and I'll also add that we're gonna put up an information kiosk there that includes a map of the area and
Okay.
some rules.
Yeah, I'd like you to share that with me too, so I can share it with our responding department. So we don't want to go look at the map when we're going to go there. We want to know where we're going before we get there. So, okay.
Next up are DD Kennedy Park restrooms. That project is complete and the restrooms are open. One thing that has come up just recently that I'm looking into is with the change, but that building went from a standard septic system to just a holding tank now. And to provide some access for the pumper to get in there and get those tanks pumped, because they're gonna need to be pumped on a more regular basis now that it's a holding tank. So we're gonna look at providing some, like a gravel access road to that area there. Some of you may have heard Gandy Dancer Trail, the bridge on 270th Avenue was hit again, August 26th. Sounds like it was a semi hauling some carnival equipment this time. Photos there, you can see this time it actually did a little damage to the I-beam there. So the DNR, it's a state bridge, so the DNR is sending out inspectors this week to take a look at that, to inspect the integrity of the bridge. And from that, I think they are planning to decide what they are going to do with it. Whether it's repair it, whether it's raise it, whether it's remove it. Well, we should be finding that out hopefully later this week. Clam Falls Dam, there's a couple pictures that Rod sent to me with progress on that. The gates are slated to be installed this fall. Actuators February, March, and then the bridge is planned to be open during the winter. The recycling remodel, there's a couple current pictures. The state approved plans, it sounds like those are back now and the project is going to be getting started back up. And they believe that they'll still be able to complete it on time.
Looked pretty quiet today.
And that's all I've got.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Mo maybe can help me, but if my memory serves me correctly, the part of the fencing was at Sterling, the town of Sterling's request. That we put up this fence around, wasn't that?
Yes.
It basically came.
Yes, the town wanted everything compliant, so they weren't running off of the property.
And what is the fence? I mean, is it chain link? Is it wire? Is it?
Wire.
It's a wider gap wire that's, how tall is it?
I think it's 4 feet tall.
4 feet tall, and then there's gaps in between there to let wildlife in and out of it. So the smaller critters can get through it. It's not like a woven that tight.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Pardon me, Chair, for just a minute.
We'll go with an update from Highway, Josh. What you got?
Not a whole lot. Wrapping up our construction season. County Road F from State Highway 65 to Deronda. We'll start milling that surface off next week, starting on Monday. That will take the duration of the week to get that all milled off. And then paving will start the following Monday. So on the 16th, we'll start putting the hot mix asphalt down on that and then shouldering to follow the week after. So for the next 3 weeks, if you don't have to drive that Monday through Thursday, be good to avoid it if you don't want to slow down. State Highway 35, we're still waiting for the governor's signature on the additional funding for that patch from County Road W up to the north end of Frederick. The good news is the region has approved the leftover funding from our scrub seal on 35. We came in under budget on that. They're allowing us to roll those funds over. But until we get the signature from the governor on that initial discretionary maintenance dollars, we can't schedule that to start. We're hoping to get it done this fall, but we're still waiting for that signature and that paperwork to come back on that work on the State Road 35 up there. Have some county maintenance items we're addressing, some in preparation for upcoming projects, some just to replace failing culverts. So we've got about 9 more culverts. We've replaced, I think, 16 this year already, not counting some of our Bridge 8 culverts that we did. So yeah, we've got 9 left to do on the schedule yet. Some on County Road G, 4 on County Road M, and a couple on the County Road F over there by Trollhagen in preparation for that project coming up that we have the federal funding on that should start next summer for construction. Starting to do a second round of mowing. The grass is still growing pretty good. It's slowed down a little, but we're going to be doing a second round of county mowing. We're also addressing some visibility concerns on the state. So we're sending out mowers on the state to address those issues. And our crews have been really busy the last couple of weeks with tree cleanup. So we've had a lot of trees down in the right of way, on the roadways. Got them all cleared off right away. Had to call in several guys after hours to clean up the ones that were on the roadway. Now we're just trying to get the ditches cleaned up. So if you're driving around, you'll see a lot of trees out there. We're aware of them. We're working on our list is quite lengthy. So we're getting the chipper out there and crews as soon as we can to get those cleaned up and out of the clear zone in the right of way. And then we've still got crews out crack sealing and fiber filling various county roads, just working on our maintenance plan for that. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
F is the double M and intersection to how far does it go?
Oh, F 4.1 and F 4, I think it's 4.79 miles or something like that.
All right.
That's one that we have STP funds for that.
That's the first road I did when I took your job. So lasted quite a while, 19 years.
The federal project originally too, because we did some scope work.
It was, and we had to do a lot of correction to get it to comply.
Yep.
And
because of the federal dollars.
That was my very interesting first job here.
Yeah, this will be a resurface of that one.
Yeah, you should be good there. Any questions for the highway commissioner?
Josh, is there any way that we could contact every load that comes out of Ryback, it's what they call Northwoods now. Every load that comes out of there and every load that comes out of Trap Rock has to come onto Highway 35. Is there any way that we could get them to calculate the number of tons or yards or something that comes onto our highway every day? Because I don't, they just don't realize down in Madison, the weight that's on Highway 35 from the county line to the 243 bridge and to Highway 8. St. Croix County, 2 weeks ago, from the county line, they seal coated everything. And it's a beautiful job from Highway 8 where 35 starts up here where they seal coated. So we got that gap in between there. And if we could get that something out of Craig Thompson, some emergency or something, we could save that where if it, maybe next year would save it yet. But right now, it's just in a crisis situation. I'll bet you going up the Osceola Hill, I'll bet you the ruts are, I'll bet they're getting close to 6 inches deep. They aren't gonna be able to snow plow that without leaving that much ice. And it's sure deteriorated through the traffic, weight more than anybody believes.
Yeah, I have reached out to him.
I know you have.
I haven't got much of an answer back from him yet, but we'll keep pestering them and see what we can do on that. And Mo brought it to my attention that St. Croix County had seal coated that.
Yeah,
that to the South County line there, and hopefully we can get something like that done.
35 starts off Highway 8 is really nice. I mean, we all know what seal coating does as far as the life, and because there isn't anything scheduled there, no money appropriated till 2030.
2031 currently.
And
yes.
it's disastrous right now. Yeah.
Keep your posted.
Town of Farmington, and some of the townships involved, they would sign a petition.
3 highway commissioners in the room. We know what that callus on our forehead is. It's the one where you're beating your head against your desk or the wall trying to get the state to do something. So appreciate your efforts, Josh, but I know what you're up against.
Yeah,
Their traffic counts tell them how many easels are on.
that's all they go by, a traffic count rather
Well,
than.
their traffic counts tell them how many easels, they go by easels, how many heavy loads, axle loads, per million are going on that road. So they have that data with their traffic counters tell them that.
Okay, we're moving along then to Sheriff Walk.
We've got an hour-long speech planned.
Good. Ain't got nothing better to do anyway today.
We're setting a record for longest committee meeting, I think.
Need to get a lunch set. Can we get us a lunch?
So the good news is I don't have much to give. We did have a fatal accident August 24th. That was on County Road I at Highway 48. Somebody ran through the stop sign, struck a car that was eastbound on Highway 48.
Was it the car that had the 4 participants?
It was a truck going north and there was 4 occupants in there and it struck a car that had 2 occupants.
Oh, okay.
So,
thank you.
that's our 6th fatal for the year. I attended last month at Border Security Roundtable in Rice Lake. It was a former Border Patrol chief from Yuma there to talk about some of the stuff at the border, which does impact our drug traffic and things like that. I hosted, the fun of the month was I hosted the retiree qualification shoot. All our retirees come back once a year. And Jay, of course, you're on that list and didn't show up. But it's fun to get the old retirees together and share stories. And I always do a big cookout for them and then we shoot and they qualify and then they're allowed to continue to carry their firearms as retired law enforcement. I would also like to plug that on September 21st in Pine Park here will be the Suicide Awareness Walk. I'm part of the Mental Health Task Force, and that's a really great event. It was pretty much done in with COVID, so this is now the launch of that event. And it was a very powerful, great event, and it impacts a lot of people. So I would encourage anybody who has an interest in mental health and suicide awareness to to think about coming out to that event. We'll be providing some traffic assistance for that event. Other than that, that's all I got.
Sheriff Walk, I'd sure like to show our appreciation for the neighborhood night out, sheriff's night out. I went, Osceola sponsored one at, I think it was at 5 o'clock at Trinity Church, and from there I came up here, and boy, the participation I thought was amazing.
We have good participation, and the hot dogs are really good too.
Walmart donated 4 bikes, I found out, and boy, the kids were nice to see coordination where kids see what the appreciation of law enforcement does.
It really is for us a recruitment tool.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, if we can leave a good impression on some kids and they want to pursue this career, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, what's his name? Russ Arcan was the other county board member that was there that I saw.
Are you fully staffed now?
We are not. In fact, I had a resignation today. We're down a couple in dispatch, and we are actively hiring in the jail and also hoping to get those positions filled, but we will have additional patrol positions to fill now too.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Right.
Administrator Norby.
Yes, Mr. Chair. On item 14, just a couple things. We had our second bat test positive for rabies in Polk County. This one, my understanding is there was no positive contact with a human. There was no human contact with this bat though. So that is our second bat within the month that tested positive for rabies. Sales tax shows a slight increase, but still negative from last year, 1.1%. So we're down over the year, 37,453. So trended up a little bit optimistically, but still negative over last year. So that will be a conversation for item 16. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, reading about the bats. And if there was no human contact, how do they actually understand? You know, how do they find out that that bat had rabies? So
Typically, someone finds the bat and turns it in.
oh,
They die.
Yeah.
just gets tested.
Not a dead duck, a dead bat.
Any other questions?
One question, yeah. On the judge's decision on the Stour Trail, is there any kind of deadline on that appeal?
The appeals court is still working on their decision, so we're still waiting.
There's a meeting tonight at Osceola TV and TV Club.
No word yet, but still waiting.
You think it'll be before the end of the year?
I do not deign to try to figure out when the courts are going to act or not act. It's lawyer talk.
Speaking from experience, right?
Yeah.
So I can't give I can't give a.
I didn't know if is there sometimes there's a deadline. Very often.
Any other comments? Hearing none, Supervisor Rowdy and the update from ATV, UTV.
I'll make this very quick because we're all ready to get done, but we had a good meeting and Tony wrote a lot down that they're looking for. The club had questions on it. He's gonna work on it and I guess that's where they're going.
Yeah. Any comment or question for Doug? We'll go on to 16 then.
All right, exciting stuff, the budget. Well, as you know, the full budget will be given to the full county board in December here this month. This is a portion of that budget, recommended budget. We're still working on numbers, trying to get it closer there, but this is a look at some of the extra funding requests that came in. We did get a tremendous amount of extra funding requests, which is normal. It's a time of year that departments can ask for everything.
And then it's my job to say yes or no to those things with that. So let's go to the first slide. That slide right there. Okay, some of the extra funding requests affecting public works and safety. Facilities. We have in there a placeholder for the grandstand, $600,000. That's based off that other the slightly lower estimate versus the 1.7, the 500,000, the $600,000 with concrete work. Replacing the dock at Magner, replacing the skid steer, recycling, restoring the poultry rabbit barn. That's for the fair, tuck point at the museum. Upgrade ventilation system, the admin building, that's another fair project, along with upgrade lighting in the hog and sheep barn, that's another fair project. 887 K there, that is Highway B. That is that federal sheriff project that we've been talking about on bonding. And then law enforcement, 3 additional FTE patrol duties. And these will have some split duties with recreation and also investigation. With that, purchase of squad cars and then replacing the DC power inverters at our towers for communications. So with this budget, to come in with a balanced budget, we have a lot of different levers looking at this thing. One of them that we've been talking about is bonding. Next slide. So you look at bonding, we're getting a final number today, bonding capacity with that to do our projects without going into our savings account. Right now we're at 1.7 million in bonding. Of these projects, then 300,000 in levy, recycling fund, and the 110 fund is basically our internal loan fund where we set money aside and the departments pay the general fund back for that as a short-term loan, 5 years typically on those. So with that, we have different levers to use. You notice if our bonding capacity is $2.2 million, that leaves us capacity of $500,000. Still to add another project to the list, like County Road E, which we talked about last year, which is north of 48. That 4.74 mile stretch is approximately $1 million. So we could fund half of that. We still have the money out there in broadband, that 800,000 that's left there. That could be a lever pulled by the board to reallocate those funds for infrastructure projects. Right now, it's being very hard how to disseminate those funds for that final connection to homes, depending on whether it's a company or individual landowners. So that is another appropriation with that. So you'll have a presentation at the county board on bonding with that and how we look up there. We're looking very good that way in our levy allocations. So next meeting in October, you'll have the opportunity to, pull some of these levers, approve the budget that way. If you can go back to the other slide, Claire. And then at the full county board, you'll see all the funding requests that are come through that are my recommendation to approve for all the departments. This is only a portion of them. 2.2 for here, and I think overall funding requests were north of $6 million for funding requests. So determine where we can and do that, with a flat levy. We're still keeping it flat. Our levy allocations that come in, even our investments that come in, it's still a struggle to make ends meet, but this will be a balanced budget with those levers pulled. Another one that's going to be there actually is the recycling fee coming through that resolution to help offset the levy cost and shift those funds priority to accommodate other operating costs. So
Dr. Mo, does bonding have to be for a certain entity, or can it just be bonding as part of our budget process?
the rule of thumb is you don't want to bond for operating expenses. You want to bond for something that you're not going to be paying on once it's completed. So
I mean, it's
projects, buildings, and part of our bonding strategy, moving forward that Administrator Frey put into place was
the ability to replace, the ability to replace levy funds with bonding funds so that we can keep the operating costs going, the reoccurring costs going forward with that. That's where we become the struggle as the flat levy and those costs get tighter. And if we don't get on the bonding, our bonding plan, eventually you start really reducing your projects down there.
But it's so obvious that inflation is far exceeding the bonding ability.
Right. You know, many counties, on a bonding schedule like this, that you take, if our bonding's $2.2 million, it's set aside that they bond every year for highway projects, or they bond every year for, certain project
And
that way.
bonding rating is about as good as it can get, isn't it?
Yes, right now we'll make more money, borrowing money than we would using our savings account.
Yeah.
Can you clarify if the recycling center or fund, or the recycling fund was, I don't remember it being a resolution. I remember it being a unanimous vote to look at or
Yes.
sending it through
The resolution,
process.
yeah, the resolution has not come forward yet. We were gonna do that with the budget process. So that the board had another look at it that way, that we didn't bury it within the budget.
And your County Road E project is the project that we talked about earlier. Trying to meet our goal,
Yes,
improve our goal, because if we don't spend any more money, we're not gonna ever improve our situation with our goal there, so.
right.
Wouldn't even keep up to our Pazer ambition, would it?
We slowly lose ground on Pazer. And that one would be a full pulverize and pave. That one is, from State Highway 48 north to County W. 4.74 miles. It's about 230,000 a mile with a pulverize and a 3-inch lift.
She's a rough ride right now, I'll tell you that. I wouldn't want to drive a truck.
Yes.
Long overdue.
The county board, you get a little more detail then in the whole budget at that time. And then in October, we can discuss those other issues of wanting to add another project, possibly utilize the broadband money for different projects. So
How long's the broadband money been sitting there? I mean, it's a couple, 3 years at least, right?
Don, do you know how long that's been there?
22.
22, couple years. Yeah.
Seems a shame. Needs, you know?
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, any questions on mowing the budget then? Are you done?
And then the other lever.
Cut you short.
And the other lever is the P-TAG funding. Having that resolution to include parks with just trail improvements. We can utilize it for capital projects for our park system. All I got.
Any questions or comments from Mo?
Done. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I don't think we got anything for our work plan. They'll be definitely, September. There's some red ink here, but over outdoor recreational plan, so. All right. Identify matters for the next meeting. It'll be a little shorter than this one. I don't have anything to identify for the next meeting.
If there isn't anything next time, to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Well.